Welcome to another week's of What the Vet episode. Sorry. There's just a doggy in the background who's very thirsty. Very thirsty. And I love Amber's face when it happens. If you
Because
haven't quite picked up the memo, Amber is a big Chiefs fan. So
way
she's
to
got
call
some
me out.
swag going on. Huh?
Way to call me out.
You literally have it on your chest. And it made me giggle. Like, I'm going to start busting out my Colts t-shirt and then we're going to have a fight. Don't. Absolutely not.
Joyce, I don't know if we could do this anymore. Colts? Well, you didn't say the Broncos or the Raiders, so I guess we're good.
Well, it was the Broncos when the Mannings went to the Broncos. Keep your opinions to yourself, child.
I will. I will. I'm
Bust a cap in
good.
your ass. Don't get me going on my Colts.
The only cap you're gonna bust in my ass is probably a pin cap. So just
Well, now that we've got some issues that we have to clear away later on this week's episode, we're dodge and weave. We're going to be talking about how easy it is to get meds in veterinary medicine and how easy it is depending where you're at, because it is getting more strict, but still where there's a will, there's a way, how easy it is to get controlled drugs. Yeah. Especially compared to seeing how it's done in a human hospital. It made me laugh on how easy it is in the veterinary side. Let's talk about how one year my dogs needed tramadol, and I bought, without question, a 500 count bottle of tramadol for $2.50. They were like, sure, here you go. Did I need 250, or what was it? No, it was a 500 count bottle of tramadol? Absolutely not. Did I, in fact, take said tramadol after I was prescribed by a doctor? Yes, I did. Full transparency, I did. I did have a script because I went through my whole lower back ordeal, where I was on muscle relaxers and tramadol. Yeah, they did not question it. It was a 500 count bottle that lasted me years, but it was only $2.50 that got put on my account.
yeah. Was that back before it became controlled, or was that after the controlled?
No, that was after it became controlled. And I will say, it was at a specialty clinic. I knew techs that would take steroids all the time, prednisone. Super easy. You just pop a pill when you're at work. Done. There's even with our version of like a Pyxis, we don't treat it the way human side does. But also on the human side, they have a pharmacist keeping an eye, they have pharmacy techs, and
Yes, it's a lot more regulated.
they have the nurses that there's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're a witness. The place that shall not be named that Amber and I worked at, only certain people were allowed to have the drug key to the
Hmm.
drug cabinet.
We had a whole
How
protocol.
often did that key get passed around because the person that had the key was holding or restraining, and they're like, yeah, here you go.
It was like a soccer ball, like bing bing, like ping pong. It went to everybody.
Went to everybody.
Everybody.
There
Shouldn't have,
was,
but it did.
yeah, and it's sorry, Olipop and Chinese food all in one fell swoop.
So you had like carbonated Chinese food just then? That was great.
That was wonderful combo. Basically, but the one thing I couldn't find, because I like facts, and it proves just how undocumented things are, right? Drug addiction and vet med. It's there. We all know it's there. But when something happens and a tech is busted for taking injectable fentanyl and putting water in and things like that, yes, we have to let DEA know what happens, but that tech is just fired. That's it. That's
Yeah.
the repercussions. I have not seen anything go beyond that. And yeah, the DEA has the name of the person, but like they just go to another practice.
But let's think about the flip side of that. But the reality of the situation is how many of those veterinary practices are actually reporting to the DEA and not recording that bottle is dropped or damaged or wasted. Like how much of that actually truly gets reported?
Well, fair. I was at one clinic where it was,
Yeah.
because a tech was caught doing that with fentanyl. With the post-op, it was a neurosurgeries at the time, so they would be on a fentanyl CRI overnight
Hmm.
for the first like 12 hours. And then like we started noticing on certain nights they would be in a more amount of pain than what you would expect. And one thing led to another, and found out that water or saline was being mixed in, so on and so forth. That was reported to the DEA, but that was the only time that I've seen it reported.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was a lower man on the totem pole, so I didn't see the aftermath, but she was just let go. And she had a job a week later at another practice. I only knew because we were friends on Facebook, and she
You
had
got the
um, posted that she was at a new place.
My thing too is when things like this happen and you have, whether it's your technician or your DVM or anybody in a veterinary hospital abuses any substances there, yes, it needs to be reported to the DEA, but I feel like there should also be some kind of a, and make fun of me if you want to because I have lack of better terminology right now, some kind of a registry to where you can go through and you can, it's like part of a background check, and put this person's name into this database and see if that they've ever had any offenses for abusing drugs in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Some
There,
kind
I
of a
mean, it doesn't
DEA
exist.
registry.
Yeah,
It
I was
doesn't,
gonna
but it
say it.
should,
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
you
no,
know?
wholeheartedly, because like if a nurse was caught, like a human nurse, their
Hmm.
license is potentially taken away, right?
Yep.
They have to
Correct.
go down a very long, extensive road if they were caught taking drugs. Yeah, I know.
The
I
same
always
should
joke,
happen for CVTs, but what about OJTs? Like we have
and
no ramifications for OJTs that get caught.
none. And because it's not documented anywhere, you can't find the statistics, but I can tell you right now they're there. I
Hmm.
saw like methocarbamol
Yep.
technically is used in human. I've been prescribed methocarbamal. Last
Hmm.
time, sorry, next time, like for my TMJ, I was given methocarbamol because Flexerol it gorks me too much. And I was like, can I just do methocarb? I knew for a fact that it didn't gork me like that. Why? Because it was readily available. And I
Yep.
even had a doctor say, here, take this.
Yep.
I
Yep.
also had doctors in the past say, I think Moose needs this. Here you go.
Hmm.
Because he was a Mastiff at the time. And they were like, yeah, one of those drugs. I worked with a vet that also would try medications so she knew how the patients would react, including ones that were not meant for humans. But she wanted to know what it felt like so she could relate to the animal. Baytril, not a good trip.
So I'm gonna
She did it while she was in vet school, by the way.
leave it. Okay.
Again, it shows you the easiness it
Yeah.
is to have
Yeah.
access to medications. And this is God, on my mother's grave, the truth, where I was giving propofol to a patient, the propofol and the pet went everywhere. Some got on me. I know what propofol tastes like. It is
Yeah.
disgusting.
Oh God, it's nasty.
It is nasty, and nothing makes the taste go away. And then I told the doctor that was with me, and he was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Oh, this is disgusting. It won't go away." And it was why he was performing surgery. He just kept talking about how the taste doesn't go away, but he had to try it too. So again, the ease of it.
Yeah. And I don't feel like, having to be somebody over like the controlled substances and things like that, that there are there's all these regulations, right? All of them. We have to
And
follow
human
so many.
side, there's a crap ton of regulations, and
Yeah.
it made me chuckle when I saw how things were done on the human side about just like how controlled, just getting one injection of something, the hoops you have to go through. And, when they give the medications for the patient that's due at 9 o'clock, it's one tablet. And that is the only thing that's put in there. And every now and then you're like, oh, yeah, what's this medication doing here, laying here, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, that's it. It's like nothing compared to veterinary medicine.
No, we have regulations and things like that that we need to follow, right? Great. Does everybody follow them? Absolutely not. Is everybody's books and inventory off? Absolutely. Does their electronic records match their paper? No. Very rarely are you going to find a clinic that it's like dead on, and they should be. And if you think about it, Joyce, how often have you seen a DEA person come in and inspect your books in vet
Not
med?
once.
I've had a few. I've had a few in
I was
different
gonna say, I was
hospitals,
like,
and
I've
then
never. I knew that books were going to be given during that instance to the DEA, but they never came into the hospital. They
yeah,
had to meet at a different location where they were. I've never had DEA come in and say, "I need to look at your books."
yeah, I've had that in one hospital. The DEA came in, and the books kept getting screwed up by the person that was doing them. So we had a running log on our surgical window, and then those were supposed to be reconciled at the end of each day, right? Well, it had been like 2 or 3 days since the books were reconciled, which we had a lot of entries, right? The
Mm-hmm.
DEA came and did a pop inspection, shut us down, completely shut us down until our books were they went through everything with a fine tooth comb when they seen that, and we had to balance everything. They shut us down. We had to send clients out of the building and everything. We were not allowed to operate. And that's the one time I've ever seen them in that clinic. And then I had the shelter when I was there. I was there for 6 years and only seen the DEA once. They came in and did a 3-month audit of the substances that were used in that facility for like the last 6 years. It was a nightmare. But after that, I've not seen them in any facility that I've been in. Yeah, the health department will come in and look at a couple different things in
Yeah.
terms of like boxing your
Yep.
drugs and whatnot, but DEA, nothing. And while I'm on my soapbox about this, shipping of these controlled substances, how many times have you ever had to sign for a box that contained a controlled substance? No, they used to leave them. The UPS would leave them in our Sallyport area and didn't even require a signature for Tilazol, for buprenorphine, for hydromorphone. Yeah, no signatures. Yeah, just drop them in
Fentanyl.
the Sallyport. Yeah, fuck it.
Yep. I
Yeah,
was like, I don't. All throughout the years of being the person
ketamine.
that would
Hmm.
order that stuff, not once.
Nope, no signatures.
Mm-mm. Nope.
So you could order a bottle of Fatal Plus, ketamine, all kind of controlled substances, and not once have I ever seen a signature required for it. Blows my mind.
Yeah. And it's funny because people think that it's not going to be easy to rob a vet place. Dude, our lock boxes are so easy to break into. Like, at least some of the places are going to a more actual machine that kicks out medication, so it is harder to get said medications, but they can't hold all that's in the hospital.
Yeah.
Whereas, you have to have a badge and access to get X, Y, and Z to stock at a human hospital.
Hmm.
Like, it's just the ease in veterinary medicine is at a 10 out of 10 ease.
Yeah. And two,
Which poison, pick your subject. It's very easy. You need
yeah, and
antibiotics, cool, they're there.
cool. You got them. It is what it is. It's cool. You
Yep.
need eye meds. You need muscle relaxers. Here you go.
I mean,
And it's,
how many times how many times have we done stuff to, like, I've had my eyes numbed to try to get a speck out.
I believe you've numbed my eye before with Pilocar.
Yeah. Yep. Like, I had like a grain of something literally lodged in the upper eye when I worked in Sarasota. And for a week, I was suffering and I couldn't afford to go to an urgent care or anything like that because, hashtag
Hmm.
broke, and I didn't have health insurance and I couldn't afford it. And finally, it was a relief vet. And she was like, "Do you trust me?" And I was like, "If you think you can get it out, yes." Because she had flipped up my eye just enough where she saw something there. She's like, "I'm going to numb your eye." And she took a popsicle stick, ripped it in half, had the soft parts, and she flicked that piece out. Like, she performed surgery on me, and my eye was so swollen, and then the next day completely normal.
There you go.
Yeah. So, like, it happens.
It does. It does. But the controlled substance issue, and two, with our field, with the emotional and the mental trauma and the I hate to say the bullshit that we go through with all of these substances so
Mm-hmm.
readily available, it feeds addiction. Feeds
It
it.
does. Yeah. When they say not one more vet, and you get the
Hmm.
vets that euthanize themselves,
Hmm.
how easy was it for them to get the euthanol?
Yep. And two, there's been technicians that I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna say I know personally, but I've heard stories about that would inject Euthazol into their fingertips to get high. Like, how did you have
Yeah.
that readily? I understand the vet having access that readily, but again, it's too accessible to have these things. It's too
It
easy
is.
to get a hold of it and formulate
Like,
addictions on things.
I don't want people to think that, like, I'm advocating or making light of the situation. Like, I'm proving a point
Hmm.
that I'm just as guilty of
Yeah.
taking advantage of a situation that's there. You know what I mean? And, like,
Oh
now
yeah.
obviously, I go to the urgent care where I need to go, and I'm really lucky where
Hmm.
I'm at now. They have, a place where you can go if you work there for normal things. If it's
Yeah.
extensive where they have to cut something or anything like that, then yes, you have to go to an urgent care. But, like, if you need antibiotics for a cough, you can go there, get antibiotics, and you're good to go. And it doesn't,
Yeah.
like, they charge your health insurance, but, like, you don't personally get charged except for the medications that are filled in hospital, which are cheaper. So
Correct.
very grateful for that. But it's just to prove a point that you can get access to all of the things that you need. Your workplace is Mexico for us. You know what I mean? Because people go across the
Yeah.
border to get their stock up of things. You know,
Yeah.
we tried, I had a Shih Tzu that Amber knew very well named Rascals. And he had to be on Trazodone. And because his life was full of anxiety that he created in his two brain cells. But we tried Xanax with him. And instead of like, because we were such a small clinic, we could only buy the smallest bottle, which was like a 50 count, right? That made it the best day every day in his world. And he was too happy. Like he wouldn't stop. Like he physically could not stop. And Allie thought it was the best day. And Rascal was like, I can't breathe, but I must keep going. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm going to give this back. And it sat on the shelf for anybody that needed Xanax. Did I count that bottle? Probably, because I was in charge of the controlled drugs then. And I can assure you guys, everything was accounted for. Didn't touch anything. Because especially for the boss that I worked with, it was Martin. I had to do a drug count every week.
Yeah.
And, and she very type A, very strict about the drug count. And I counted those pills, no joke, until they were expired and could be properly disposed of for probably 3 years every week. Those fucking pills with only 2 missing.
Right. There's only 2 missing. You're still going to count them. You're
Still had to
still going
count
to.
them. Still had to physically count them.
Yep. I mean, rightfully so. There needs
Mm-hmm.
to be more monitoring of these things in clinics. There has to be, your practice managers, your practice owners, things like that need to be more diligent about these things. Yeah, your inventory's off, whatever, but your controlled substance inventory should never be off.
And the
Never.
only amount that, and I don't know if it's changed over the past 3 years, going on 4 now, you could only be off 10%.
Yes, because you got to account for your
So,
hub loss with your injectables and things like that. That's
but
understandable
that's
that
it.
we're gonna.
So, like
Yeah,
100 ml bottle of butorphanol, you could be out 1 ml, and that's it. Which,
yeah,
in the grand scheme of things, isn't that much. So, and
and
then if it's out, y'all in trouble if
yeah.
it's over that 10%, because then the DEA is supposed to come and blah 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 blah. But you know,
And I found out a very interesting fact. This is years and years ago when I worked at the shelter. They were very strict on our Fatal Plus and our ketamine. Obviously, these are lay people using these drugs.
I was gonna say
And the
those are the
way,
two hardest to keep track of for
yeah,
euthanasia.
yeah, we had a log, a strict log. The patients they had to be weighed and this, that, and the other before everything was pulled, injections were done and whatnot. And the staff were having a conniption because they were 1 ml over, according to the records of ketamine, 1 ml.
Uh,
So I said, okay. I said, well, somebody may or may not have gotten the correct dose. Somebody may have been underdosed and it wasn't pulled up appropriately. And again, these are people that are not familiar with how to use and read syringes and things like that. So mistakes could happen.
mm-hmm.
Well, it happened again with another bottle and another bottle and another bottle. So I was like, you know what? No. So I opened a bottle and I drew up the contents of that entire bottle, brand new bottle, 11 ml. So I called the company with which I purchased it from, and they're like, yeah, sometimes it's not 10 ml dead on. Sometimes it's 10 and a half. Sometimes it's 11. If it says 10 ml on the bottle, it should say 10
It
ml,
happened.
especially if it's a
Yeah.
controlled substance that's so closely regulated. It could be 10 and a half or 11. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
That
because you
could
don't
cost
count
somebody their
you don't.
job.
I was gonna say, I was like, you don't count a brand new bottle.
No, but
You
there, I mean,
when
you
you
should weigh it. Yeah.
when you put it in the books, you mark it as, lot number, expiration date,
Hmm.
amount, 10 mLs.
Yeah.
You don't draw up that 10 mLs.
No, you don't. But now there are parameters within your logging and your accountability to where you actually weigh the bottle when it comes in and you weigh it after each time you draw the medication from it. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so rather than the ml, the totality of the ml in the bottle, it's the weight of the bottle. Because so many mLs weigh so many grams, this, that, and the other. Weigh it when it comes in, and then subtract it till it's down to zero. That actually has worked out way better for accountability purposes than tracking by ml. I mean, you still do
Because I
that
mean,
too, but
yeah, but because there is waste,
hmm
and that waste does add up. If you're, let's say, I worked at a clinic that they tried to do a drug count every day. If you're drawing up 10 mLs every day, eventually 10 mLs becomes less and less because of
hmm
the hub loss.
yep.
Eventually, it does, but it does add up.
hmm But when you're doing it by weight, you're accounting for that hub loss because you know how much weight, how many grams and such came out of that bottle. So, and two, like when I implemented the new DEA policy at, one of my clinics, and they're weighing those drugs, you'll see when they come in and they do the initial weights, they're not always the same exact weight of each bottle. Each bottle weighs something different.
Yeah.
Even
Yep.
Tilazol before it's reconstituted. Like just on a for S's and G's, we would weigh Tilazol unconstituted and it wouldn't be the same weight. But yeah, there should be a lot more safeguards in place. There should be a lot more reporting of abuse. It should just it's
And
too
not
lax.
just be drug tested once.
No,
This is again from someone who has used and abused the system in the past. I'm just, who the fuck cares about weed? No one, as long as you're not
no.
coming to work high. But we care about the controlled drugs that you
Hmm.
are exposed to on a daily basis, regardless of what section of the practice you work in. You're all exposed to it.
Hmm.
Regardless of, even in chemo world, there's controlled drugs.
I
Dog
feel.
needs a little torb to calm down. Okay, pop it, pop,
Hmm.
2 milligrams IM, let them calm down, and then let's put in the catheter and get going. You're
And then,
exposed to it.
yep, exactly. And it just, I feel that again with the laxity, and you said there should be, you should be drug tested more than once in the duration of your employment. I think it should be,
Mhm.
at least twice a year, but practices
Because
don't want to incur that
no,
expense.
but you can do fucking buy your own drug kit and have them pee in a cup. It can test for the harder drugs, the ones that are actually controlled.
So I think pop drug tests should be a thing. Random. Not, oh, we're going to do it in the third quarter. We're going to, no, it needs to be random. You're
Yeah,
working around these substances all day, every day. And again, like you said, who cares about weed? That's like, for me,
no
I
one.
don't partake because of my captain's license and whatnot. It probably help my anxiety a lot, but I'm just going to say. But like, who gives a shit? It's like coming home and popping open a beer or a seltzer water or something like that. You know what I mean? It's not harsh. It's not that
Weed
hardcore of a
doesn't
drug.
hurt anybody.
No,
Don't
no,
get me on a rant about weed.
no. No. But like your harder core drugs, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And the fact
Yeah,
that we do use fentanyl and morphine and hydromorphone, like we use the big guns in vet med too, just as much as human medicine does. But the
yeah.
regulations are not as strict, and the availability to the staff is too broad, too broad.
Oh, it's so easy. Like if
Yeah, and
somebody
not
really wanted to do it, done.
yeah. And not to discount anybody because listen, addiction is a disease, it's not a choice, right? However, you can choose to get help. I get that, whether you want it or not. Anyway, addiction is a disease, okay? And to have these things that are so readily available to people without the proper regulations in place is insane. It's insane. And again, with addiction being a disease and there being triggers for it, do you know how many triggers we have alone just in our field and what we do every day? And then you
Yep.
have that it's like a buffet, And then even your
And which one do you want
non-controlled
to take the edge off?
substances. Yeah.
Yeah. Which
So
one do you
even
want to
non,
take off?
I don't know, bro. Crazy.
It is. It is. We like to bring things to the table, but not necessarily how to change society as a whole, in a sense. So if you guys have any suggestions, pop in a
Mhm.
little comments down below. We do say like, comment, share, do all the things, but it actually helps push us out when it's not just the views. It's when there's interaction, right? When there's, we get more followers on TikTok when people are commenting and then we comment back. And then it gets pushed out more on the views. It's the same. So like we want to do these things to help bring a change.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? Who do we contact to be like, hey, how do we get an
Yeah.
elephant upstairs? On actually making changes in veterinary medicine, because that is our ultimate goal, is to bring change for the better for vet med.
Yeah. And
And one
how
of
do
them is
we,
exposure to drugs.
yeah, and how do we support those staff members who indulge?
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a terminatable offense. I get that, but when you terminate and you ship them elsewhere, like you said, that one had a job another week later at a clinic down the street. I
Yeah.
think there should be if there should be that registry, so to speak. I wouldn't necessarily call it a registry, but it is what it is. But you are placed on this list. It's a part of your background check when you get hired somewhere. And then what do we do for those that do get caught indulging? Do we
Yeah.
offer help? Because firing them is not going to be the solution to their problems. Granted, it's not your problem after that. I
Mhm.
get that. But as a
Yeah.
veterinary medicine, like as a community, we need to take care of our own. Like, how can we help you? Did you come to us with this addiction? Did you develop this addiction? It doesn't matter either way, but you need help. How do we do that? There should be
Yeah.
programs just like there is on the human side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm off my soapbox.
So until next time, guys, now that Amber took a breath.
Hey,
We'll see you next time.
who's wearing their judgy pants tonight?
This
Bye,
guy.
guys. Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs, please.
Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs. Dare. Stick and dare, kids.